Hi, I'm Ross, and I'm here with my friend James, and we are going to be talking about a movie that everyone has been clamoring for people to talk about, Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Lightning Thief. This movie's reputation at this point, as an adaptation and as a movie in its own right, could probably not sink any lower. And we are here to just, reaffirm that reputation. Because if you were wondering, maybe it wasn't that bad. The books were great. The movie wasn't as good. No, the movie is just terrible in its own right.
Yeah, I would say that the movie compared to, say, the last Airbender movie is not as bad as that.
There's a lot wrong with it, and I am not still a Percy Jackson expert. I haven't read the books since I was a kid, mostly to preserve a sense of nostalgia, because I have a feeling I won't enjoy them as much, because you never do. But this movie was one that I watched over and over again. I got the DVD relatively early after it came out, and I never really had any problems with it. I was a kid and it was a movie I was watching, and when you're a kid, just the act of watching a movie is exciting enough in and of itself,
Yeah, especially when something that you're a fan of, like a book.
And it's not until later that you realize, wow, every single thing in this movie is actually quite bad, and most of it makes next to no sense, even for a YA adaptation like this.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I'm not a hero. I'm a loser. I have dyslexia, ADHD.
And those are your greatest gifts.
So the story of this movie is that Percy Jackson is a teenage kid. He's having a lot of troubles at home. He's having troubles adjusting to a new school. And it turns out that he is the son of the Greek god Poseidon, and he gets swept up in an adventure to find the missing lightning bolt of Zeus, which was stolen and which is causing the entire Olympian world to descend into war. So to save the world, Percy has to find the bolt and rescue his mother from the underworld.
You're Hades?
Yes.
My real problem with this movie is that it's just such a bland, boring way to tell this story. And from what I remember, it's a pretty interesting story. And a lot of the fun of that is playing around with Greek mythology in a modern perspective. And this movie sort of does that, but also not really at all.
They knew that the book series, in a sense, was almost on par with Harry Potter. But it seems like when they made it, it was just more so a cash grab, and maybe the filmmakers didn't believe in it as much. It didn't seem like it had as much effort put into it as Harry Potter.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chris Columbus, who directed the first two Harry Potter movies, directed this. And I assume the only planning that went into this movie was they said, get the guy who did the Harry Potter movies to do it, and we've got a hit. Because this should have been a hit, right?
Great. Demigod driving. Oh.
It has all the ingredients to be a hit, mainly that the cast is absolutely stacked, ridiculously stacked, I would say. To name a few, Sean Bean, Catherine Keener, Uma Thurman, Steve Coogan, Pierce Brosnan, not singing ABBA, so I think it's a weaker performance for that, and a weaker movie for that, honestly. Everyone in this movie is miscast except Uma Thurman.
That is true.
Uma Thurman knows exactly what movie she's in, and she is bringing that prime Batman and Robin energy to this. She knows exactly what she's doing.
Can I say it?
Yeah.
I think Uma Thurman looks best with snake hair. I'm just saying.
It is a look.
I used to date your daddy.
Funny enough, it wasn't even like animation on Uma Thurman's head. Like, she got a bunch of snakes.
She could just do that?
She could just do that. She just stuck them to her head.
Interesting.
And the snakes just did that.
I really hope Uma Thurman enjoyed what was probably a substantial check for one day's work of standing around and going, "Son of Poseidon!
Son of Poseidon!"
I think they were just coasting off the brand, off of the certainty that they would make money off of this. And so they didn't really need to try. They didn't really need to try to adapt the book well. They could just kind of do whatever. I think the first instinct for fans and just general audience members with this would be to assume that the adaptational changes are the main problem, but it's not. It's really just the permeating atmosphere of laziness that infects everything. Whenever this movie starts to do something good, it ruins it. When they first enter Medusa's lair and they're seeing all the statues and you kind of start to realize what's going on, it was genuinely creepy for exactly 2 seconds, and then It seems like this movie is sort of stuck between wanting to do its own take on Percy Jackson and trying to adapt the book. And because it jumps back and forward between those two things, most notably in tone, because the jokes all felt really out of place in this, especially everything with Hades, that just felt really off for what this movie was up to that point.
They also felt very forced.
To me, nothing is more indicative of the time period in which this film was released than a Lady Gaga needle drop halfway through, which I remembered in the deep recesses of my brain I knew was coming, but when I heard it, I had an almost physical reaction of just disgust.
I thought you were having a seizure.
Yeah, just remembering being alive at that time and middle school dances, and just it all came crawling back over me.
Ma.
I think they did miss a lot of opportunities for the movie to just stop and breathe and get to know these characters a bit and get to spend a little time in this unique world, because it doesn't feel unique. It feels bare bones. It feels more truncated than adapted, I would say. It just feels like, what if Percy Jackson sucked? Was the pitch for this movie.
Percy, stop! No!
Did you like Percy at all as a character in this? Can you say you liked Percy and wanted to see him succeed at all?
He was just kind of
There?
cliche, edgy kind of teenage boy.
It's never really clear how Percy feels about entering this world. Percy's just kind of down with everything because there's nothing but benefits. There are literally no drawbacks or really challenges he faces outside of, I have to fight the monster. And that's boring after a while.
Yeah, because like in Harry Potter, like we were there with Harry as he was figuring stuff out. Percy Jackson, it just felt like 10 minutes of him learning how to fight, and then now he knows everything.
None of the characters really work, though, because most of them have one setting. Annabeth and Grover repeatedly just state their characteristics to the camera.
If I can't stop you, I must accompany you, because I'm your best friend and your protector.
Percy, that's all I've ever done is train and train and train.
The dynamic of the main three, that team, it just feels like a bunch of people who barely know each other hanging out. As characters, Percy, Annabeth, and Grover, when you meet them and when the movie ends, they are in about the same place, except Percy seems to feel slightly better about himself. I would have liked some sense of growth, some sense of development, some sense that Percy learned something.
I'm the lightning thief.
And the villain especially falls flat, because Luke is not enough of a character in this story for that twist to matter, because there's never any indication that he might be a villain, which is, yes, the point.
My dad's a jerk. I've never met him. You too? Guess we all got daddy issues, huh?
I wouldn't trust this movie to intelligently do literally anything, but they could have done something more with that. That alone, because that's kind of the most important part of the story, is the relationship between gods and humans. It's like they didn't know what this story was about.
Once you find the first pearl, the map will show you the next one, and then you're off to Hades.
And the adventure, also, that they go on isn't very interesting or engaging, because you never really get the sense that the characters can't get anything done. Here's the thing. What you have is a premise about kids, because they were 12 in the first book, kids going on this giant high-stakes adventure, and at no point in this movie does it feel like the kids are ever in over their head. Everything they do, you feel like they've done this 100 times. It's fine. And that's crazy to me.
But can we talk about Luke's gaming setup?
Luke is a gamer, which was the first reveal. I mean, maybe that should have tipped us off. It's an evil setup. It's an evil man's den.
I still want to know how the they got Wi-Fi in Camp Half-Blood.
Yeah.
We Phineas?
Good one.
I couldn't think of anything.
We Phineas.
I am the most powerful god there is.
Oh, great Greek accent.
I spread Wi-Fi and joy wherever I go. I'm with Phineas, by one of my kids.
I love the idea. I love the idea of a god named Phineas, who is the god of Wi-Fi, and he's just selling his kids. I'm honestly shocked they even bothered with a sequel because nobody wanted more of this. There's no franchise potential building off this movie, I think. I guess actually it's pretty comparable to Aragon in terms of just completely dropping the ball right out of the gate with what should have been a guaranteed hit. As a filmmaker, you should not want your work to evoke things like Aragon, but unfortunately, Chris Columbus, this is just one of your many sins. This movie is probably the worst thing anyone named Christopher Columbus has ever done.
Exactly.